Hello, YouTube. This is Alzoru, and welcome back. Today, as promised, we have the tale of Kaharne, the god, who did not start out that way. Long ago, before there was writing, and before the river was carved through the land, there was a salty marsh where a baby was born, a triton, with particularly shark-like features. His mother died in childbirth, and his father abandoned him in disgust, throwing him into the dry grasslands to be eaten by wolves. Napini took pity on the boy and rescued him, calling him Kaharne, and the god raised him, making him grow to be strong and strapping, and to never take a slight lying down. When he came of age, Napini let him wander, and Kaharne first found and slew his birth father for having abandoned him and left him to die. He then sacrificed him to Melki. In these days, if anyone, especially a family member, betrayed you, you had the right to punish them in kind, and then offer tribute to Melki. And since his father had left him for dead, he was at liberty to do the same, but instead killed him swiftly, not letting him suffer. By sacrificing an evildoer, he had caught her attention, and she appeared to him in the form of a shark-like woman, immediately drawing his affection. Melki set upon him 6 tasks. First was to kill and sacrifice a gang of pirates threatening a port city. Kaharne jumped upon his task, fighting 4 of them at once with his great strength and endurance before being stabbed thrice. Kaharne flew into a rage and tore the pirates to pieces in a frenzy of death. Then he stole a stone spear from one and took it as a weapon for himself, and he sacrificed their broken bodies as promised. His second task would be to slay a beast of the land named Kekaolia, a serpent with 3 heads and a tail which was wreathed in flames. He used his spear to slay the head on his right immediately, but the spear would be burned by the flaming tail, and he tried again to use his rage, killing the left head by strangling it. But the central head would bite him and fill him with its venom, then slap him with its flaming tail. Avoiding him as his rage slowly exhausted him. Realizing his rage yielded no fruit, he calmed down and retreated temporarily to rest. But the serpent followed him to where he rested, and they fought for an hour before he managed to shove a stone into its mouth, making its bite useless. This time he entered his rage and ripped the tail from the body, and he threw it away to let it bleed out, which it did. He kept its tail to use as a whip. For his third task, she told him to go into the desert and bring back the flower of paradise, and to get past its guardian without slaying it. For 7 days and 7 nights he wandered the wasteland with nothing but his whip and a stone to keep him company, and then he came upon Ubak, a giant 5-headed snake with a flaming tail like that of his younger brother Kekaolia, whom Kaharne had previously slain. Kaharne did not approach, knowing that if a fight were to come to blows, either he or the serpent would perish, and he also knew that he would recognize his brother's tail. Cursing his luck, he realized what he had to do, and set the tail on the ground, wriggling it to get the serpent's attention. When he did, he snuck over to the flower to pluck it. Ubak tried to speak to his brother, and by the time he realized it was but a severed tail, Kaharne had absconded with the flower of paradise. For the 4th task, Kaharne was to quell the spirit of Ina Haula, a vengeful ghost of a female Kerbul who haunted a port town. He traveled to the town and endured the attacks of the spirit, all while asking its plight. The spirit beat on him for hours, and when he did not fight back, she calmed down enough to tell him that her husband had murdered her for the rights to her extensive dowry and now lived in luxury as a widower. Kaharne understood what he had to do, and he kidnapped the husband, knocking him out with great ease and delivering him to the offended spirit, who woke her husband and clawed him to death for his treachery, and Kaharne sacrificed the husband, mostly just to be sure. The spirit allowed him to take with him a mystical jar that could capture offensive spells and a great axe that had been part of her dowry, and he did this with many thanks, and she departed. For his 5th task, he would challenge a young kraken, and whenever it tried to throw any sorcery upon him, he would capture it in the jar, and he would get closer to it and slash with his new great axe. Its many tentacles would bind and ensnare him, and eventually it devoured him. But he would use his rage while inside of the beast, and he would hack his way out. This did not kill the beast, but it was gravely wounded. He then he chucked the jar of capturing magic, and it exploded into a ball of raw, wild magic, which electrocuted the kraken into its demise. He sacrificed the beast to Melky Laska. His final task would be the most time-consuming. He was to carve 12 great channels into the earth of varying lengths, making them winding and leading into the sea. Each channel took him 3 years to carve out, and slowly he grew old. Once he had finished the final channel, he was more than 50 years old, which is impressive for the time. He was going blind, and his strength was failing him, but nevertheless, he sacrificed one final evildoer, a bandit who had tried to rob him on his way to her shrine, to the goddess. The goddess took his sacrifice and appeared to him once more, and he showered her with praise, treating her with all due reverence and more, giving his best of compliments to her blue skin, her green eyes, her coral necklace, and he went further, to even call her true form a magnificent beauty of no peer. Charmed by his words and pleased by his feats of heroism, she wedded him, and had him lay upon the fire with his axe and with the flower of paradise, and sacrificed him. But she did not sacrifice him to herself or any other god. She sacrificed him to himself, and he was reborn as a new god. And all the channels he dug sprung forth, releasing rivers and creating lakes. And Kaharne was now the god of these, and thanks to the purification of the flower of paradise, the water lacked salt. Kaharne then carved all other rivers and lakes all over the world, especially in one peninsula where he told the Kermul to settle into, and they would name the city, the peninsula, the swamp that eventually formed, and even the nation they would build there after him and his glory. Thus ended the tale of Kaharne the mortal, and thus began the life and reign of Kaharne the god, husband to the ocean mother.